Evening, everybody, and welcome to, I think, part 31 of Finding Your Path, our exploration of Moshe Chaim Luzzato's Mesilas Yesharim, the Path of the Just. We're in Perek Yud Aleph, chapter 11. It's a long Perek. Last week we finished off discussing, and we're going to continue tonight, Bezrat Hashem, how important it is to be careful about the kashrus, about what a person puts into his mouth. And we're going to see that kashrus, kosher food, is, in some senses, is something which a person has to be very careful because it becomes part of your body. Food becomes absorbed into the fabric of who you are, of not who you are, but it affects it. Well, I'll go into details when we get there. So last week we ended off. I told you a story about this Jewish businessman who had to go out for a meal, and of course the non-Jews understood he couldn't eat the non-kosher food, but they were very surprised when he wouldn't drink the wine. And I told you that he tried to explain to them that our rabbis made a gezerah, made a decree to make sure that in case the wine was used as a libation for avodah zarah, for idol worship, and it came out that the waiter overheard this conversation, and he said that, by the way, I couldn't hear what you were saying, but every time before I serve my customers, I always pour out a little wine to my gods in the kitchen. And of course, their jaws dropped. So even though these things seem very remote to us, Chazal knew where things needed a gezerah, where things needed to have decrees to, and that is the idea of stam yenim, of wine which has been touched or comes from a non-Jew. Okay, we're going to continue. We got as far. We're now. Where is it? Sorry, where are we?
Kayotze bazer is the last words.
Kayotze bazer. See if I can see it here.
The start of the paragraph was Bahamad Rega, Achar.
I don't think I have. I don't have paragraphs here. Pisuri says it was overcome. Okay, yes, it was okay. But Pratem Rabin, there are many details when it comes to kosher food and all the details that have to be observed. B'chol dinehem, all the dinim, v'hayuduim, or which are well known, v'hamavaorim, and which are explained b'sifrei haposkim. V'hamekel behem, and somebody who's lenient, b'mokum she'omru lachmir, where Chazal tell us to be stringent. Eina ela mashchis nafsho. He is only, very strong words, he is basically destroying his soul. V'kach ormum b'sifra, it says in the Sifra, which is a medrash, lo titam'u behem v'ne meisem bom. Do not impurify, do not pollute yourself. Tuma. Tuma is to pollute, to make yourself tome with them, and you will become tome through them. So it seems to be like a circular logic. It's a strange statement. It seems to be, don't impurify, don't defile yourself, don't pollute yourself with them, and you will become polluted. What's the posuk coming to tell us? It seems to be, as I said, circular. So it's explained, the Gemara explains, im metamim atem bom, if in the end, if you make yourself impure by eating non-kosher foods or non-kosher foods. So sofechem, in the end, letame bom, you will become tome with them. Now I think it's maybe we can really explain this because of the word tuma. The word tuma comes from the root of satum, which means sealed. Food, there's a nice satum. Satum, for example, I'll give you another example. A human being who's androgynous, who his sexual characteristics are covered over in such a manner that you can't discern whether he's male or female. So he has organs, but the organs are concealed from sight. He's called a tumtum. The Gemara refers to him as a tumtum, or she is a tumtum. A tumtum is somebody that, and that's the same idea, that it's covered over. The idea of tuma is that it covers over the kedusha, that it makes it a person, impervious to holiness. The holiness can't reach him because he, as we'll see in a second, Chazal darshan this, the Kedusha he's sealed himself off. I was thinking, I don't know if it's true, but it seemed to me quite an interesting coincidence at best, that in English the word for a tomb is the similar as the word tumah. And of course the greatest tumah that can be is contact with a dead human body. Now this is not because of any kind of physical miasma or pollution or disease. A dead body which is, as soon as the soul leaves it, which is in no way decomposing or putrid, is as tomei as, God forbid, a body which has been left for many, many days. The idea of tuma, why that is, interestingly, why it should be a dead human body should be the greatest sense of tuma, source of tuma. So there's a pasuk that says in Devarim, which says, I just remember, it says that Mochatzti ve'ani erpa, Mochatzti ve'ani erpa, Mochatzti, I've cut down, says Hashem, ve'erpa, and I will heal. So Chazal darshan the word Mochatzti, I have cut down, Mechitzati, my barrier, I will heal. We're talking about death, of course. The reason why death is the greatest tumah, the greatest sealing, the greatest cutting off, the greatest separation, is because, lo aleinu, if you've ever been in the presence of a dead human being, the feeling, there's this overwhelming feeling that this is the end. That's it. And, a lot of people do believe that, God forbid. But we know, we don't see the continuation. So this tumah that comes from this perception of that this is satum, it's sealed. I can't, there's nothing there. It's come to an end. That is why that is the greatest tumah that can be. The greatest tumah that can be is this concept or this feeling that this person has come to an end. So that's the idea of tumah. Tumah is lashon, is a same connected to the word satum, which means sealed. And we're discussing how tomei foods, they're called tomei because they basically seal a person from kedusha, from holiness. V'hainu ki hamalachosa asuros, because forbidden fools, machnisim, they introduce tuma mamash, real tuma, belibo, into the heart, ubenafsho shal adam, and to the soul of a person, ad shekudushoso shal hamokom baruch hu mistalekes umisrachekes mimenu. It causes a sealing off that the kedusha, the connection, the natural connection that a Jew has with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if God forbid he eats these food, it causes a sealing of his heart and his soul, that the kedusha, this contact is cut off. V'hu ma she'omru b'shas gam kein, also in Shas, v'nit meisem bom, and you will become tomei with them. Al tikrei v'nit meisem, do not read it as v'nit meisem, you will become tomei, you will become polluted, you will become impure. Ela uvnitamtem, and as I said before, that's the lashon of tumtum. You will become sealed, you will become opaque. The kedusha will not be able to reach you. Shaha'avera metamtemes libo shel odom. The avera causes a sealing in the heart of a person. Sealing not with a C, with an S. Seals off the heart. Ki mistalekes mimeno hadeya ha'amitis. True knowledge and the awareness of God departs from him. V'ruach haseichel she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu nosein lachasidim. That goes away from him. The ruach, the spirit of the intellect that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to a person, to chasidim. K'moshe Amar, the pasuk says, Ki Hashem yitein chokhmah. This chokhmah that the Kadosh Baruch Hu gives to a person departs if he eats, God forbid, non-kosher food, treif food, or tomei food. V'hinei, hu nish'a bahami v'chomri mushuka begasas ha'olam hazeh. And what happens is that he remains animalistic and chumristic, very physicalized, wallowing in the coarseness of this world. If a person feels distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if he feels a lack of spirituality in his life, one of the first things he should do is to check what he's eating. Because as he said, this causes a sealing off of the heart, that a person doesn't feel close to Hashem. And that's why forbidden foods are worse in this respect than all other things which are prohibited. They become part and parcel of the physical person, of the body of the person, mamash. And they become flesh of his flesh. Shelo habehemos, hatameos, o hashagotzim, bilvad heim, ha-tameim. And Chazal also teaches, what we're going to say now is it's not just impure animals, because you can have an animal which is impure like a pig, for example, or shellfish or something like that. But not of those, just not them, it's not just those which cause tumah. But even a kosher animal like a cow which has been shechted improperly is now called a treif. Even though we call it a treifa, literally treifa means torn because it wasn't shechted properly, or it has some other something wrong with it which will cause it to die within a year of so-called natural causes. A treifa is also matamtem. It also causes the same sealing of the heart, of the spirit, of the feeling of being not close to Hashem. Elagam hatarefos, shebamin hakosher, even something which is a treifa of a kosher animal, like a cow or something like that, or a sheep. Heim bechlal tuma. They also fall into this category of tuma. They have the same effect. Omar Kosev, because it says in the Pasuk in Vayikra, lahavdil bein hatome uv bein hatoho, to divide, to separate, to distinguish, between the tome, between the impure, and the pure. Uvo pareish Rabbeinu said in Zichron Levrachos, Chazal explain in the Medrash in Torah Kahanim, ein tzarich lomar bein chamor lepara. The Torah doesn't need to distinguish between a donkey, which is a tome animal, and a parah, which is kosher. We already know that. The Torah speaks it out. Lama ne'emar bein hatome u bein hator. So then, why does the Torah talk now about to distinguish between the tome, the impure, v'hator, and the pure? Bein, because it's basically saying bein tamea loch. What is tome to you, and bein tahora loch, and what's pure to you, meaning that both of these come from a kosher animal. Bein nishchat rubo shel kona, between that which has been shechted, the cut, the kona is the windpipe, has been all of it, or the most of it has been severed, which makes it cut with one cut, which makes it kosher. The nishchat chetzia, where less than half has been sliced, and that makes it a treifa, a hair's breadth. V'kama bein ruba lechetzoyo, and how much is there between most of it and only half of it? Mola se'ara, a hair's breadth. So we see how there's a hair's breadth between something which is kosher, which is 100%, which is fine, and something which is treif, and has the ability to be matame, to cause this sealing over of a person's spirituality that with all we spoke about before. Ad kan lashonom. That's the end of the quote of Chazal. Va'omru lashon zeh b'siyum ma'amorom. And it says the following at the end of this maimah in Torah Kahanim: V'kama bein ruba lechetzio chulei. How much, as we said before, between most and half is a hair's breadth. Laharos kama nifla koyach a mitzvah, to show you how amazing is the power of a mitzvah. Shochut hasa'ara, shochut, if it's shechted, hasa'ara mavdil bein tuma. This hair's breadth divides between that which is tomei and that which is Torah, which is tahor mamish. It's a hair's breadth, and that's why he's pointing out here how important it is, how careful that person has to be, not just to steer away from things which are tomei, shellfish, etc., but also even those things which are kosher. like a parah, like a cow. Nevertheless, he has to be very careful to make sure that it's shechted properly. And v'hinei kol mi sheyesh loi moyach b'kadoi. Anybody who has a brain in his head, in his skull, very strong language. Anybody who's got a brain in his head, yachshov should consider isurei hamachol k'ma'acholim ha'arsiim. He should look at them exactly the same way as though they were poison. Poison. O kamachal shenis orev boy ezedava arsi, or some food in which some poison was poured into it. I remember many years ago now, Gerber baby foods. There was this scare that some meshugana in America had put into one jar of Gerber baby food some poison. And Gerber, I think, recalled, I don't remember the exact number, but some astronomical number of tins of baby food, tens of thousands, because of this one jar that had poison in it. If they were prepared to go, and we would certainly be prepared to go to such extents, even if there's the slightest glimmer of a doubt, of a possibility, however remote that possibility might be, that God forbid that could kill me, it doesn't really matter how many chambers there are in the Russian roulette gun. A person, unless he's, wants to, gets his kicks that way, but nobody would, in his right mind, buy Gerber baby food. He'd buy some other brand, Heinz or whatever it is, I don't know. But it's just if a person's prepared to go to those extents to be careful, to ward off any distant possibility of harm, physical harm, so he should behave in exactly the same way when it comes to kashrus. And be very, very careful to remove any distant vestige of a doubt that this may cause him spiritual damage. Kinei, im davar zeh ye'ara, hayokel ha'adam al atzmoi la'echol mimenu, because if a person would be aware of this, as I just said, it got out that there was some poison in one of these jars, would a person be lenient? Would he just take it easy and say, well, it's fine, it's not going to be in that one? What are the chances? If there remained any distant suspicion, however small that might be, for sure a person in such a situation would not be makel, would not be lenient, would not just say, well, it doesn't matter. The im yokel lo nechshav ella l'shote goma. And a person who would be lenient in such a situation would be considered to be a complete idiot. Av isa Michael. So similarly, foods which are, forbidden foods should be looked upon as poisonous. Av isa Michael kava beiranu shehu eres mamish. We've already explained that tome foods, treif food, is like poison, pure and simple. The lave, to the heart and to the nefesh, to the ruchnius of a person, to a person's spirituality. Im kei mi eifo yiyeh hamekel b'mokom chashash shel iso. So therefore, how can a person, given this, be lenient and slipshod when it comes to Issa? Im Baal Seichel, who, if he's an intelligent person, for sure not. Val davar zeh ne'emar, and it says in Mishlei, v'samta sakin, and you should place a knife be'loecha in your throat, in Baal Nefesh ato, if you are a Baal Nefesh, a person who's I don't know how to translate. How does he translate Baal Nefesh?
We have Hebrew. Let's look at an English one.
Baal Nefesh is somebody who goes the extra mile, somebody who's careful about things. Now it's an interesting posuk. This. What does it mean and you will place a knife in your throat if he's a Baal Nefesh? So let's have a look what he says down here. In other words, he's saying, rather stick a knife in your throat than give in to the temptation of eating something which may look very tasty, but it's doubtful whether, in point of fact, you can. The chashash that it's kosher. That's how he translates it now. Sakin beloacha. Ayan says he quotes the Gemara in Chulin, Daf Vav Amud Aleph, Rabbi Shimon ben Loza, Shedira, Rabbi Meir la'asuye chamra mibei kusai, Ashkech hu saba, Amalei v'samta sakin bo'alecha im bal nefeshu. Perish Rashi im bal nefesh ata. If you are a bal nefesh, if you're a person who's careful, who desires spirituality, and you're a ben aliyah, you're somebody who this is important to, and you're careful. Imodem kosher ata. If you're he says a kosher person, somebody who's careful. In your cheek. Kloima tis chazek also we said, meaning be strong, dominate your yetzer hara. So to speak, rather stick a knife in your cheek than eat this food which is doubtful. That's the idea. Okay. Now, v'nivdaber, yeah.
How do I fit this into the lenient laws of like 168, or I think I even heard if you have like 3 pieces of meat, one of them, the whole thing is not kosher, but you don't know which one, I heard you can eat them all.
Okay, so what you're asking, I don't know if the microphone picked it up, so I'll just say the question again. What we're asking now is, how does this fit in with the concept that, for example, if milk falls into the yeshiva cholent, and there's 60 liters of cholent and 1 liter of milk, so Chazal say that you can eat it. The Rabbanon, if somebody poured it in deliberately, in mevatlin isel chatchila, and it would be also the Rabbanon to do that. But if it fell in accidentally, it's completely mutter. How does that work out if we're supposed to be very stringent here? The other question you asked was, if you have 3 pieces of meat and you know 2 of them are kosher and 1 of them is not kosher, it's treif, and they look identical. So the oraisa you could eat all 3, because we say in yovish b'yovish, things which are dry, they are bottle barov, they are nullified in barov, in the majority. So if 2 of them, which is the majority, the Rabbanon actually, from what I remember, don't quote me on this, I think you shouldn't eat all of them. You should, but the oraisa you could eat all of them, because we say it's bittul barov the oraisa. The answer to the question is that Chazal and the Torah gave us parameters. That's not called being makel. That's called that 1 in 60, that's bottle. It's like it's not there. It's not there. Similarly with the pieces of meat, as we say, you shouldn't eat them all together it's because it doesn't look right. It's a problem of maris ayin. But the Torah, just like the Torah tells us what's tomei and tells us what's treif, it also tells us what's mutter. And so a person doesn't have to be makel in things where it's a clear-cut case. We're talking about something where there's a suffix. We're talking about something, let's put it into practical cases, that you go to some restaurant and I don't know, I'm not going to say it's like Rabbanut Aza but I'm saying that it's a questionable heksha. I think anybody who's been involved in the production of foods knows that you're in a restaurant and whatever, especially in ours that we spoke about last week, a lot of food production is very complicated and problems can come up. So in those sorts of situations, it's not worth being makel. It's not worth being lenient where there's any kind of a doubt. If there's any situation where there's a doubt about the standard of the kashrus, or whether this is kosher or not kosher, or maybe something happened, you should always lean to the side of being machmir. But in something where for sure for 100%, there's 60 liters of cholent here, and for sure 1 or less liters of milk fell into it, and it's not nikah, you can't see it obviously, it can't be visible, and it's already been given a good stir in the kitchen by somebody who didn't realize, and it looks now like completely good cholent. No, that's mutar l'chatchila. The Torah, in other words, just like the Torah tells us what's osa, and it gives us definitions, and those definitions, to our eye, maybe they don't they're not necessarily logical, but the Torah tells us that's the way it is. On the spiritual level, we don't have eyes to see these things. That, as we said before, there's a hair's breadth between something which is toho, which is kosher, and something which is treif. Can you tell the difference by looking at it? No. But the Torah has eyes that we don't have. The Torah sees beyond and above the physical to the spiritual realities that lie behind all of these laws. Okay, so I think this is a good place to pause, and B'ezrat Hashem, we're now going to, next week we're going to discuss things about violent speech, aggressive behavior, tail-bearing, all of the pitfalls and all of the areas of care that a person should exercise in his relationship with his fellow human beings.